You saw it. You recognized something about it felt different, and still, you didn't move. Not because it wasn't clear, not because it wasn't real, but because something inside you didn't recognize it as yours. That's the part no one talks about. Because people think missed opportunities come from lack of awareness. But that's not true. You're aware, your eyes see. You notice patterns, you feel shifts, you sense when something is different. But awareness without alignment is how you stand in front of open doors and still walk away. Let's be honest for a moment. You've had moments where something showed up in your life and it felt different. A conversation that lingered in your mind longer than usual. An idea that kept returning even after you ignored it. An opportunity that didn't look perfect but felt important. And instead of moving toward it, you paused. You questioned it. You tried to make it make complete sense before taking a step. And slowly, you talked yourself out of it. Not because it wasn't right, but because it didn't fit the version of life you thought you were allowed to live. That's the real problem. You don't miss opportunities because they're hidden. You miss them because they don't match your internal expectations. There's a gap inside you, not a gap in intelligence, not a gap in awareness, a gap between what you see and what you believe you can hold. Because every opportunity comes with a silent question. Do you believe this belongs in your life? And if your answer, deep down, is uncertain, you hesitate, not visibly, but internally, and that hesitation changes everything. You start analyzing instead of acting. You start waiting instead of moving. You start doubting instead of trusting what you felt the first time. And that's how clarity gets buried. Not by confusion, but by overthinking what was already clear. This didn't start today. This is a pattern. You've been here before. Moments where something in you said, "This matters," and you didn't listen. Maybe because it felt too soon. Maybe because it didn't look stable. Maybe because you were afraid of what would happen if you were right. So you delayed. And over time, you taught yourself to mistrust your own recognition. Now, even when something is aligned, you second-guess it. Not because it's wrong, but because you've learned to disconnect from what you feel. Here's the part most people won't admit. You don't always ignore opportunities because they're unclear. You ignore them because they're too clear. Because clarity removes your excuse to stay where you are. Once you see something for what it is, you have to respond, and response requires change, movement, risk. So instead, you blur it. You tell yourself, "Let me think about it. Let me wait a little longer. Let me be sure." But what you're really doing is softening something that already made sense. You keep saying you're waiting for the right moment. But the truth is, moments have already come. You just didn't move when they did. And that doesn't mean you failed. It means you didn't trust yourself enough to respond. Because decision-making isn't about knowing everything. It's about recognizing enough and moving anyway. There's a belief sitting quietly underneath your decisions. You may not say it out loud, but it's there, that things only count. If they come through difficulty, that things are only real. If they take time to prove themselves, that things are only yours. If you've suffered enough to earn them. So when something appears with clarity, not chaos, not confusion, not resistance, but clarity, you don't feel peace. You feel suspicion. You start asking, why is this so easy? Why now? What am I missing? And instead of receiving it, you interrogate it, not because it's wrong, but because it doesn't match the pattern you've normalized. You've trained your mind to search for flaws, even in aligned situations, especially in aligned situations, because alignment feels unfamiliar when you've lived in uncertainty. So instead of allowing something to unfold, you start scanning it. You dissect it. You question every detail, not to understand it, but to protect yourself from being wrong. And that's where everything shifts. Because when your focus becomes protection, you stop being open. And when you're not open, you don't receive clearly. You distort. Your eyes are in the present. But your heart, it's still referencing the past. Every missed chance, every disappointment, every time something looked right and didn't last. You stored all of that. And now, without realizing it, You measure new opportunities using old outcomes. So even when something is different, you respond like it's the same. You hesitate like before. You doubt like before. You hold back like before. Not because this moment deserves it, but because your heart hasn't updated its expectations. You say you're unsure, but what you're actually experiencing is internal division. Part of you sees clearly, and another part of you resists what you see. So you sit in the middle, stuck, not moving forward, not walking away, just analyzing. And that space, that in-between space, feels like confusion. But it's not confusion. It's misalignment between perception and belief. Let's correct something. Certainty is not what creates movement. Movement is what creates clarity. But you've reversed it. You've been telling yourself, I'll move when I'm sure. So you wait. And while you wait, the moment passes. The opportunity shifts. The alignment fades. Not because it wasn't real, but because it required a response you didn't give. And slowly, you convince yourself, it just wasn't meant for me. When in reality, you weren't ready to recognize it as yours. Overthinking doesn't feel like fear to you. It feels responsible. It feels like you're being careful, intentional, wise. But let's be honest. If overthinking was clarity, you would have moved already, because clarity doesn't loop. It lands. What you're doing is not gaining more understanding. You're delaying decision. And the longer you stay in that loop, the less likely you are to act. This part matters, because people love saying, I missed it, like it vanished, like it left suddenly. But that's not what usually happens. What actually happens is quieter. You feel something. You recognize something. And instead of leaning in, you create distance, emotionally first, then mentally, then physically, until eventually you're no longer connected to it. And from the outside, it looks like it's gone. But from the inside, you stepped away. You've been asking for confirmation, more signs, more clarity, more reassurance. But what if the reason nothing new is showing up is because you didn't respond to what already did? Because alignment is not about constant signals. It's about what you do when you receive one. And right now, your pattern is receiving, then pausing, then delaying, then letting it pass. You already see more than you admit. You recognize patterns faster than you acknowledge. You feel shifts before they fully form. Your awareness is not the problem. Your readiness is, because until your heart accepts what your eyes recognize, you will keep standing in front of opportunities you don't step into. There's a version of you that learned how to move through life carefully. A version that waited to be sure, avoided making the wrong move, stayed within what felt familiar. That version kept you safe, but it also trained you to hesitate. And now, even though you've grown, even though you see more, even though you recognize more, you're still making decisions from that older identity. So when something new appears, you don't respond as who you're becoming. You respond as who you used to be, and that creates a disconnect. Because your awareness has evolved, but your self-perception hasn't caught up. You keep looking for internal approval before action. You want to feel completely ready, completely confident, completely certain before you take a step. But that version of certainty, it doesn't exist before movement. It's built through movement. So what you're actually doing is this. You're waiting to become someone before you act like that person. And that's why you stay in place. Because identity doesn't shift through thought. It shifts through decision. Let's go deeper. It's not just hesitation. It's fear of misjudgment. Because if you move on something that feels right, and it doesn't work out, you don't just lose the opportunity. You lose trust in your perception, and that feels heavier than missing the moment. So instead of risking being wrong, you choose not to move at all. But here's the truth you avoid. Not moving is still a decision, and it has consequences too. Discernment is quiet. It's clear. It doesn't rush, but it doesn't stall either. Delay, on the other hand, feels like thinking, but it's actually avoidance. And you've blended the two, so now when you hesitate, you call it wisdom. When in reality, you're postponing responsibility, because responding requires commitment, and commitment removes your ability to stay undecided. There have been moments where something aligned so clearly, you felt it instantly, not loudly, but deeply, a knowing that didn't need explanation. And still, you paused, because you were waiting for confirmation from outside, from people, from circumstances, from perfect timing. But what you didn't realize is this: the moment itself was the confirmation, and every second you waited, you weakened your connection to it. At this point, you already know more than you act on. That's the gap. Not knowledge, not awareness, response. Because clarity without response turns into frustration. And frustration turns into self-doubt. And self-doubt slowly convinces you that you don't recognize opportunities, when the truth is, you didn't respond when you did. This isn't just about logic, or timing, or strategy. Decision-making is spiritual, because every time you decide, you align yourself with a direction. You either move toward expansion, or you reinforce limitation. And the longer you stay undecided, the more you train yourself to remain in that space. You've been waiting to feel ready. But readiness is not emotional. It's intentional. You choose to move. You choose to trust. You choose to respond, even while uncertainty exists. Because if you wait for fear to disappear, you will wait indefinitely. Before anything else, pause. Because most of your decisions don't come from a lack of options. They come from the way you approach what's already in front of you. You've been moving like someone who is still trying to figure everything out. Still unsure, still waiting, still holding back just enough to avoid full commitment. But that version of you, it doesn't match what you've already seen. Because you've seen enough. You've felt enough. You've recognized more than you admit. So now the shift is simple. Not easy, but simple. Stop moving like you're still unsure, and start responding like someone who trusts what they see. Before decisions become action, they pass through silence, and you avoid silence more than you realize. Because in silence, there's no distraction to hide behind, no noise to dilute clarity, no opinions to soften truth. So right now, mentally place yourself in stillness. No rushing, no thinking ahead, no rehearsing outcomes, just you and what you already know. Ask yourself directly, where have I already seen clearly, but refused to respond? Don't generalize it. Be specific. Was it a decision you delayed? A direction you ignored? A shift you felt but didn't act on? Let it come up. Don't defend it. Don't explain it. Just acknowledge it, because awareness becomes powerful only when it's honest. You've been holding yourself back with one condition. I need to be sure. But certainty is not what moves your life. Response is. So right now, release the need to have every outcome mapped out. Release the need to feel completely ready. Release the idea that you must eliminate all risk before you move. Because that mindset doesn't create clarity. It delays it. Not a soft one, not a temporary one. A clean decision. Decide. I will no longer ignore what I recognize. I will no longer delay what I already understand. I will no longer pretend I don't see just to stay comfortable. And let that sit. Because your life doesn't change through information. It changes through decision. Now let us pray. God, I'm not coming to you asking for more signs. Because if I'm honest, I've already seen more than I've responded to. I've noticed the moments, the shifts, the quiet clarity that didn't need explanation, and still, I hesitated. Not because I didn't see, but because I didn't fully trust what I saw. So today, I'm not asking you to show me more. I'm asking you to align me with what I've already been shown. Strengthen my heart, so it can stand where my awareness already is. Because I see now, my eyes have been open, but my heart has been guarded. Careful, hesitant, still holding on to past outcomes, still measuring new moments with old fears. And that has been limiting me, not a lack of opportunity, not a lack of direction, but a lack of response. So today, shift me internally, not just in what I understand, but in how I move. Teach me how to trust the clarity that comes quietly, the kind that doesn't force itself, but stays present until I acknowledge it. Help me stop searching for confusion in what is already clear. Help me stop delaying what I already recognize. God, remove the fear of being wrong, because I see how that fear has kept me still. Give me the courage to respond, even when I don't have full certainty, even when I don't see every step ahead, even when part of me still feels unsure. Because I understand now, readiness is not something I wait for. It's something I choose. God, rewire the way I interpret opportunities, so I stop questioning everything that doesn't come with struggle, so I stop doubting what flows, so I stop resisting what aligns just because it feels unfamiliar. Let me recognize alignment, not as something to analyze endlessly, but as something to move toward. And when I feel the urge to delay, to pause, to overthink, interrupt me, bring me back to awareness. Remind me of what I already know, because I don't want to keep missing moments that were never hidden from me. I don't want to keep stepping away from things that were meant for me to step into. God, heal the part of my heart that still expects disappointment, the part that holds back just in case something doesn't last, the part that prepares for loss. Even when something is beginning, replace that expectation with steadiness, with trust, with clarity, so I can stand in new opportunities without shrinking, without questioning my place, without feeling like I have to prove I belong there, because I do, and I accept that now. God, let my decisions reflect growth. Let my actions reflect alignment. Let my responses reflect trust, not fear. And from this moment forward, when I see clearly, I will not turn away. When I recognize something, I will not delay. When something aligns, I will not shrink. I will respond fully, not perfectly, but intentionally, because I understand now, my life doesn't shift when I see more. It shifts when I move differently. So I step into that now, eyes open, heart ready. Amen.